Welcome to Lynn's Warriors, where we fight for safety, dignity, and every future of every child. I'm thrilled to introduce co-authors Jean Rogers, director at the Screen Time Action Network at FairPlay, a favorite organization of ours, and we have Pat Cantor, a trusted member of the Action Network, advisory team, board member. Is that correct, Pat? I want to give you your
board
correct
member.
You two have so many credits. It's hard to, be concise with both of you. But the wonderful FairPlay Action Network. Jean and Pat join us for this powerful conversation today about their brand new book and our shared mission to hold big tech, policymakers, and institutions accountable for protecting children online. Jean and Pat, along with their co-author, Melinda Holohan, who could not be with us today, are bringing real-world solutions, advocacy, and awareness to the front lines, all for you warriors. So sit back and relax. The book is Screen Aware, Early Childhood, a Realistic Approach to Helping Young Children Thrive in a Digitally Complex World. And that it is. I will have a link for the book for purchase. Remember, everybody, we are entering the holiday season. Books make the best gifts. It'll all be in the body of the video. So you can take your time, you can read, order, and support and educate yourselves and each other. It's a great gift for grandparents as well, or for grandparents to give to their kids, I should say. Let me turn that around. So please also follow screentimenetwork.org, which is a coalition of practitioners, educators, advocates, and parents working to promote a healthy childhood by reducing the amount of time kids spend with digital devices. Join them now. There's so much information. There's a screen-free aware early childhood action toolkit. I just put it on our Warriors website, lynswarriors.org. Let's get to it, because I could just talk all day about these two, but you want to hear from them. Welcome, Jean and Pat, to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Now we'll start. No, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt, but I want to say you're both warriors. You are both dedicated. Your dedication and commitment. You are warriors. I want to start with a little something before we dig into everything. Let's start with you, Jean. Tell us about yourself. Anything you want. It could be about your childhood. It could be just any little personal thing you might want to share.
Well, thanks, Lynn. I started my early career as a writer, and I was doing some journalism, some speech writing, and then marketing writing turned out to be sort of a lucrative career. And then when I gave birth to my own 3 children, I started realizing I didn't want to use my talents that way. And I find a lot of our activists who are parents will realize something once they have their children and pivot their careers. And so I wrote my first book called Kids Under Fire and started giving workshops for parents on how to empower their kids to make healthy media choices. And then after my master's degree, I ended up here at FairPlay, and I've been here for almost 10 years now. Strongly believe that corporations should not be shaping childhood.
I mean, I'll just leave it at that. You worded it perfectly. Corporations and our kids. Okay, now we're going to leave that, because I'm going to let you two experts explain all that. Now, Pat, you are on the hot seat. Tell us a little tidbit about yourself. What do you want us to know about you?
I started my career in early childhood as a preschool teacher and then a child care center director. And then I was a faculty member in early childhood at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire for a little over 30 years. In the 1990s, early 1990s, I started to become interested in the impact of screens on young children, birth to 5, birth to 8. At that time, that was primarily through television and also what was called lapware, or computer software designed for babies. I was kind of appalled by that. Little did I know where we'd be today. That was the beginning of the wedge of starting to market screens toward very young children. So I've been researching and presenting about screen media and young children since that time. I had previously co-written a book on tech-wise infant toddler teachers, which was really geared toward teachers of children birth to 3. And how to navigate screen media at that age. And then I became involved a long time ago with FairPlay in its previous iteration, Campaign for a Commercial-Free Childhood, and have stayed with them because of the amazing work that they do. met my co-authors at a Campaign for a Commercial-Free Childhood conference back in, I think, 2016 or 17, and we began working together then.
Yes, and you said we are going to rule the world and set them straight on screens and kids and what everybody needs to know. I know it. That's why you're warriors. Okay, now, your book. Let's start with it. Screen Aware Early Childhood was just recently released. Let's start with you, Jean. Tell us. You kind of did fill us in a little bit already, but why did you right now in 2025, almost 2026, sit down, Jean, and start to write this book? What was the impetus? Why did you want to get this out into the public now?
That's a great question, Lynn, because there are so many books about children and screen use out there. It's a great question as to why we spent a year of our life working working 2 jobs to get this book out there, because we saw a gap. We realized that educators of young children were being sold a bill of goods, that they were being told that these screens are going to make kids smarter. They're being told it's going to make their life easier. And they weren't being given the other side of the story. They weren't understanding, how does child development intersect? And one of my favorite phrases that we use a lot now is that technology changes, but child development does not. Kids' developmental needs are the same as they've been for centuries. And understanding how they intersect with this screen environment that kids are born into now is critical to their brain development, to their learning. And we felt the need to be able to put together a tool that would be easy for educators and for parents, because there's so much confusing information out there.
Yeah, I like that. I like the word easy, because a lot of the feedback I get is, I get to page 10 and I put it down. I get bored. I can't follow it. Or, it's the same with devices. And for instance, an iPhone, they'll say it's 31 steps to put guardrails on it. I got to step 10 or 11. I forget it. I'll have to trust my child. Now, Pat, that's what they say to me. This is, the reality that we're dealing with. So easy is good. Just handing them straightforward information and making it easy lifting, I like to say. Now, Pat, what do you have to add to that?
I would say that in my decades of teaching people who are going to be teachers of young children, I realized they had a lot of questions about the role of screen media. They were used to it in their own lives, and they saw a lot of benefits, and many of them, I wouldn't say were dependent on screens, but used screens in a lot of different ways. But they had a lot of concerns about what they saw about the impact of screens in young children. For example, the impact on children's play, how children might just reenact scripts of what they saw on a screen and not bring in their own imagination and creativity. And the students that I taught and that I know our co-author Mindy teaches really wanted help and guidance about how to navigate this really, as we say, digitally complex world. So over the years, we've gathered some strategies and approaches, and it was great working with my co-authors because we were able to pull together our knowledge and try to present it in a way that, I think easy is a good way to put it, but not everyone's going to find it easy, but in a way that's realistic and doable, I would say.
Yeah, but we have to be, I've been told we have to be realistic, because we have, we're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence. We'll get into that in a little bit. I mean, it's a national emergency, a national crisis. I'm calling all of this going on with our children, with the family, with even educators. I have a lot of teachers who say to me, geez, this is being dumped on me. I don't even know like what it is. So it's a full circle. We've got, the children, we've got the parents, the caretakers, we've got the teachers, the educators. We have to do better in helping them understand, not just dumping everything on them. So that's why your book is such a tool. We can start there and build from there. I want to ask you, Jean, let's start, Jean, with, it's all over. You can't escape screens. You can't escape, again, AI. I don't worry about a thing or get scared of a thing. I'm scared of AI. We all know it can be used for good in healthcare. We know all these things. But as far as kids, why is it so important? I've been doing a lot of reading and studying up lately on the young brains, with the devices. parents, everybody needs to understand, I mean, from birth, I guess, the impact of screens. Again, there's something called parental autonomy. You, both of you, we can't tell parents when to buy a device or, but how many kids I see sitting with an iPad, like in a high chair. And I think, wow, that maybe that child's maybe 18 months or something. And I know people need a break and they're eating a meal, maybe in a restaurant, but the devastating impact of these screens on the young brain. So what do you want to tell us about all of that? Because we know they're shaping them and not in the best way.
Well, there's so much to unpack there, Lynn. So I think one thing that you said was we see it in restaurants. We see it everywhere. We see it on airplanes. My colleague David and I flew to Atlanta to speak a couple of weeks ago. And on the flight down, we saw a mom put headphones while the child, as soon as the child sat down, about a 5-6-year-old, where's my iPad? And then the mom put the headphones on, plugged the child in, and we probably had a 2-hour flight, 2.5-hour flight, never spoke to the child. So isolation is something I really worry about for these children. They are not getting the contact, the interaction, the communication they need from loving adults to really develop significantly healthy brains. And we know that 80% of brain development happens before the age of 3. So that's why we wrote a book on early childhood, because think of every decision that you make, and every day parents need to make a decision about a screen multiple times a day is going to impact that child's brain development.
Jean, mentioning the airport, yes, I fly frequently and I see that a lot. Either waiting for the plane, the kids have the headphones on with the iPad or a phone on the plane, like a babysitting tool kind of thing, just anything to keep them quiet. And what I always say is, people will say, yes, I live in New York City, but they'll say, oh, it's too dangerous to let them go outside. Or it's, oh, they're at the kitchen table, they're quiet, it's fine. They're in their bedroom, it's quiet, they're on an iPad. But that's the danger. Right in your own home, under your own noses, and they don't even realize it. But I have to ask you, Jean, when you see something like that, do you want to go up to them and if you could be your real self, evil self, and say, do you know what's happening to your child? Because I would be hard to, I know I wouldn't do that because again, there's parental autonomy, but do you ever feel like you want to do that? Go up to people
Well,
and say
we
something?
all feel like we wish we could do that, Lynn. But what I think have two thoughts on that. One is parents think they're doing the right thing.
Yes.
We have to assume that all parents want what's best for their children. And like we said, the parents are being marketed to as well. Mm-hmm. And so removing judgment is going to help us to help them. And that's what we really state that very simply in the book, that this is a no judgment zone. And we say that whenever we speak. And the second thing about it is, well, while I wouldn't say anything in that situation, I do go up to people who are doing it the right way, whose kids are playing Play-Doh, on the little table that comes out on the airplane or reading a book. I mean, I will go up and congratulate parents who have not given in to screens.
I like that. And I'm not judging. I just want to help everybody understand, because you pointed out the lying, from big tech and the lying with the glossy press releases about safety features and filters. When we know, and I won't bore everybody with the studies, they really don't work most of the time. But the public, the overwhelmed public, so busy trying to take care of their families, their children, if they see a statement that says we have child safety, they just kind of believe it. And they go along with it and don't go any further. So that's why the book is a terrific tool to open up, critical thinking, analysis. Now, Pat, what can you tell us about some of the tools in the book? Let's talk about that. The tools in the book. What are you providing in the book? If you could break it down, I know it's hard, but because there's so much in the book, but break down some of the tools so our warriors listening can expect. What are they going to expect with the tools?
Well, we recognize this is a complex problem, and it's really difficult to figure out how to make decisions about exposure to screens and use of screens with young children. So first, we present a framework for thinking about those decisions. We call it the Screen Aware Early Childhood Framework. The acronym is SAFE-C. And in that framework, we try to focus on thinking about screen use that is, or when you're thinking about screen use, try to keep in mind that it's development centered, that it's relationship based, protection oriented, and research informed. So in the book, we break down each of those aspects of the framework so that you can keep in mind things like, if I were thinking about using this piece of software or this device with a child, am I supporting the child's development, or is this actually going to interfere with the child's development? For example, so many apps marketed to families are called educational.
Yes.
One of the important points we make in the book is that there's no standard of quality that determines what is educational. Any company can call any app educational without any meaning behind it. And I think a lot of families don't realize that. So they think they're doing what's best for the child, but they're actually presenting them with something that has no merit or no meaning. So looking at that and thinking about, am I promoting the child's development through this app? Is this actually promoting the child's learning, or is there some other non-screen way that will promote the child's learning? We try to break down some of the key points of the research so that families and educators have that to work from. We present a lot of little scenarios and stories in the book, showing examples of educators and family members dealing with screen issues, finding alternatives to screens, or helping children wean away from screens, or mediating between the screen and the child to help the child understand it better. We also offer strategies. We offer simple strategies like creating screen-free zones in your home or classroom, or screen-free times during the day, setting specific limits and sticking by them. We include some examples even of signs to post in the classroom or in a home if you wanted to do that. So we also have examples of kind of simple frameworks simple sheets you can use for applying the framework, questions to ask yourself as you're considering whether to implement a particular screen application in your classroom, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's
We
excellent.
also,
You're laying it out for them. It's easy for them. Okay, go ahead. What else do you have? You have so many
I was just
goodies
gonna
here. I
say,
see refrigerators with magnets, with because everybody goes in the refrigerator and have things on the refrigerator. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
previously, Mindy and Jean and I had contributed to the Screen Action Network's Early Childhood Action Kit. And so we refer to that throughout the book. That has some fact sheets, some simple recommendation sheets. That's an excellent resource. So we use that and many other resources available through the Screen Time Action Network, of which Jean is the director.
Jean's the director. So excellent. Well, you know what? The other thing that we always have to share, there are so many good free resources available that people never seem to know about. And this is the best because it's about the screens. We're going to get into AI. I know, Jean, you want to talk about that one, but before we get into that one, I want to go back to, I want to ask you about what are some of the ways parents and teachers misunderstand the role of screens in children's lives, because there's different myths around all of this. And I really, again, this has just been thrown at everybody. So unless they're given, a book, a toolkit, a true understanding, listening to us, talk about this, they're not getting the information. Like, we really have to direct them where to go and kind of what to do with all of this. But what are these myths I've been hearing about?
So these are things that when I say them to you, you're going to say, oh, I've heard that a million times. Oh, I've heard that a million times. So they're very common in our vernacular to hear them, but they are actually, consider them marketing tools, that they're convincing you of something. The first one we talk about in the book is the digital native myth. And I think you'll hear that all the time. Oh, well, kids are digital natives, so this all comes naturally to them.
Yes.
Well, that's a dismissive phrase. It's to make you think, oh, well, I don't have to worry about it because they're a digital native. It's made to help you to just kind of gloss over the problems that we're all finding out and talking about. The second myth we talk about in the book is the earlier is better myth. So there's a real sense out there that marketers have told parents, your kids will be smarter if they get all these devices early. And if they start on these devices early, and parents are very, very concerned about their kids being successful. And so that's a vulnerability. That's a very soft spot for parents to be told, my kids will be more successful if they have all of this tech. When actually we know that for them to learn how to problem solve, to cooperate, to interact with people, to make eye contact, all of the skills that they need to grow up healthy and be contributors to our society, they don't need those tablets that early. Think of when we all were, what ages we were when we learned how to use tech. Anyone can learn at any age, but kids need to be without it at this age, at very early ages. The next one, apps make kids smarter. Kind of already talked about that one, but we talked about how a lot of those apps say that they're educational and it's not a protective term. It's not a protected term. We don't have any guidelines or vetting that says this app is actually educational. And then finally, the parental responsibility myth. So there's a lot of pressure on parents and anyone watching, even grandparents, like we talked about grandparents raising children, and caregivers, caretakers, that they feel like it's all about what I do right or wrong with screens, when the responsibility, we at FairPlay are working to put the responsibility on the corporations. It's an unfair fight for parents. And so to help parents in their home is really important, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on it. And what we really need to do is get to the systemic problems created by the tech companies.
Now you opened a can of worms with big tech and AI. We have to talk about this artificial intelligence, because I don't know about both of you, but I woke up maybe 6 months ago and I couldn't escape. It was on like every Zoom. It was taking over. I don't know, you maybe go on Amazon to look at something, then you have an AI chat companion when you're trying to buy something. So if it's like that for us, we know what it's doing. We know with our kids and the chat bots, and we know all the dangers there. And I feel like this is speeding up in just the last 6 months or so. All of this is going on. And bots have been around a long time. And I like to say they're not digital friends as they're marketed as by big tech. They're machines. They're not real. They're not teachers and lawyers and doctors and educators. They're not real. Pat, let's start with you, because AI we could talk about for days and weeks. And what do you want to talk about with AI right now? It is very dangerous for kids. That's my take. But what do you want to say about it?
I think my main concern right now would be about children's digital privacy and the digital privacy of families and the information that's fed into AI and what they do with it. I mean, it's similar to data mining among advertisers, taking children's information that children may be providing without realizing and using that to sell to children or to feed the growing AI. It's a real concern in education, because so many things that children write or that students write are then fed back into AI, so that it increases the capacity of the AI to write for the student. I hear from my colleagues in higher ed all the time real concerns about the impact on students' ability to put their thoughts together into writing, because they can just feed it into AI and have AI spit it back to them. So I think there are long-term concerns about children's developing abilities to express themselves creatively, to write, even to read, because if you don't have to do as much and AI will do it for you, why bother? So I think there are real serious concerns about that, while at the same time, educators are being pressured to use AI products in teaching without thoroughly testing them. That's one thing we repeatedly found in the book for all kinds of technology. The speed at which the technology advances exceeds the speed at which research can be done, because you want to follow ethical guidelines for research. And so it's really hard for research to keep up with tech, but the ed tech and the marketers keep pushing technology before we really understand the full implications. So that's a real concern with AI as well.
So,
I
Gina,
also think, Lynn, yeah, that that it's AI toys and AI robots.
I was just going to ask you that. I was just going to say,
Mm,
I think your colleague David told me about, I don't know, teddy bears with cameras or
Yeah,
something.
teddy bear. So my big concern about that too is that it's promoted as screen-free fun to families.
mhm.
So it's playing on that guilt. You know, we know there's enough guilt in parenting, and we want to try to remove the guilt from screen time, but parents do feel guilty about screen time. It's in the culture now. And so these are being promoted as though they're not screen time, but they're designed with the same algorithms. So, you know, they come powered by the same things that are harming children on the other devices. And they come in stuffed animals, plushy toys, and children develop parasocial relationships with stuffed animals. And these AI bots that are speaking back to them are collecting data, as Pat said, but they're also, in a way, manipulating the child's answer to the questions, assuming things, and not allowing the child to develop that relationship themselves.
I think it's the most frightening thing when I heard about teddy bears with cameras. Also, besides the bot aspect, which I want to say is a machine, everybody, they're not real. We have to keep saying that. I want everybody to know a bot's not your cute friend. They're not fun little something on the internet. They can be dangerous. They're machines. Okay. That being said, they have cameras that can your child for 24 hours a day and your home environment or picking up, I
Yes.
guess, sounds, whatever you're talking about.
Mhm.
I don't understand. Of course, I do a lot of work in Washington, and I always ask, it's like the only business I know of that's not has no regulations. Well, why? Why? I'm like, why? Now we know the bottom line is it's making a lot of money. There's a
Mm.
lot of money in big tech. And we're fighting, and there's good things happening. We should point out bipartisan, belongs to no political party. It's about children, keeping kids safe, families first, all that. Does anybody want to weigh in about why this is allowed to run amok? Should we go there or not? Because this is such a threat to our kids and our families. And I don't understand about no kind of regulation when everything else has regulation. And I digress a little bit. Parents are so concerned. Again, I'm not judging, very strict about wearing seatbelts, wearing bicycle helmets, all of those things, right? But they can't get their mind wrapped around the devices.
Mm.
Who wants to weigh in on that one or some part of it or something?
I'll start and then I'll pass it to Pat. I think, a device, especially the iPads that have covers now that look like stuffed animals or have really cute covers, it looks like a toy, but it's not. It's a portal to all these different worlds. So you wouldn't let your child just go anywhere, especially you're living in the city, Lynn, and you mentioned how parents say it's unsafe for kids to go outside. Well, that same methodology should apply to the device. That same kind of mindset that children are going anywhere on that device. And I think, I don't know, I would leave it to our policy team to say more about why, about lobbying money and what's influencing the lack of regulation here. But we often compare it to cigarettes and say, the regulation had to come afterwards. And I think that's what we're going for now.
Interesting.
I would agree. I think it's been framed as a free speech issue too.
Yes,
And
it has.
and that's been since the 1980s. So that's been problematic, pushing back against that. There hasn't been a will to do that politically, I think. Although I think that will is building now. The phone-free schools are one example of
Excellent.
that as a
Phone free schools.
start of a pushback. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of we work with a lot of great organizations. A lot of young people starting to come forward. I want to say like around
Mm-hmm.
20 to 25 even, or under 30
Mm-hmm.
maybe, where they're actually angry. Like they
Yeah.
realize now this was pushed on them. They don't want like their siblings or other kids to have things happen to them. They're fighting back. They're opening their mouths. There are kids that have here in New York. There's a group that meets every Sunday. They go no phones all weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and just by word of mouth, it's like you meet Sunday 2 o'clock on the Hill, and those who show up, but they go all weekend, and that group is growing. It started with
Mm-hmm.
one guy, one teenager, and now it's like 80 kids. And so I see those little grassroots movements as really, as we talk about government and red tape and policy and all of this, but that's where it's really at the grassroots. And
Mm-hmm.
utilizing your book to educate and talking directly, to communities. So let me ask you, Jean, I want to talk about grandparents a little bit, because almost all of them will say, I didn't grow up with the internet. And I'll say, excuse me, I'm like the same age as you. I didn't grow I didn't grow up with the internet either. But you learn, because as you pointed out earlier, anybody can learn the internet at any age if you want to. Let's I feel like this is a very untapped group right now that would really help us with all of this. What do you want to say to grandparents right now that I can steal, repeat from you, and I can bring, because I'm actually meeting with some tomorrow, and I can bring this information forward, uh, and say, now my expert, Jean and Pat gave me this with this book. So you have to listen to me now. Because I really want to rope them in and get them very involved and give them purpose, and they have time on their hands, a lot of them.
That's great, Lynn. I'm actually presenting to a group of grandparents on Friday. So
Good.
I'm looking forward to these, sharing these messages. I think there's a dichotomy though. It's very interesting because I see some grandparents, like you're saying, they're talking about their childhood in a nostalgic way. The
Yes.
kids do not have that anymore. So one grandparent I was talking to recently was talking about how when his two oldest grandchildren used to come play at his house, they would in the basement set up Legos and make forts. And then when the youngest one was born, they started coming with the iPad, and none of that would happen anymore. So there's a sadness in the
Mm.
grandparents for seeing this transformation. But I also see some grandparents who want to allow screens at their house because they want to be the cool one, or it's like
Mm.
giving candy when the parents are not allowing the kids to have candy, and they're saying, well, it's just a treat at my house. And I want to encourage you, if you're a grandparent, to, which Pat and I both are, by the way, so we have direct experience, but I want to encourage you to think about the richness of intergenerational communication. What a pet peeve of mine is that we separate generations in our country. So we put all the kids in childcare, we put our elderly into retirement communities, and ne'er the twain shall meet. And I think the interaction between generations is so rich, so valuable to kids' development, that sharing your life with the children instead of sharing screens with them is going to be critical.
Mm.
Pat?
Interesting. And by the way, I'll be a grandparent soon.
Oh,
So all
Congratulations.
congratulations.
thank you. So all of this information is so urgent for me because my kids are older. They just kind of missed the bubble of the internet type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not really into it now, other than their jobs. So like I feel very fortunate. But now with a little
Mm.
one coming, I'm gonna be have to guarding everything. Really. But it's interesting, Pat. I was also just reading that one thing you can do is just sit and read with your child. Just
Mm-hmm.
read to each other, and even like your teens, like a paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
You each read like a page or two
Mm-hmm.
once a day, and that bonding experience, not only the reading, but it's a bonding. So it's like
Mm.
kind of going back to basics. I see the pendulum slightly swinging back into all of this because more people are aware, more parents are coming forward. But that being said, parents do feel very pressured, to
Mm.
keep up with the neighbor, or the child sees their friend has this device, they don't. and also the schools. So how does a parent, because they say to me, I'm scared to go to the school, or I'm scared to bring it up, or I don't want to rock the boat. What should that approach be for a parent or even a grandparent that's representing, the kids? What would that scenario look like?
Well, one of the things we talk about in the book is kind of finding others in your community or joining like-minded groups of people. That's one of the great things about our Screen Aware Action Network, is finding others with similar concerns so that you're not feeling like you're tackling this alone, and
Yeah.
using resources so you can point to research, say about the impact of screen media on children's eyesight, because we see a real negative impact in terms of hours of time spent on screen media. Parents have driven a lot of the no screens in schools movements because they've worked together on that. And we see parents of very young children pushing similar movements in childcare centers and early learning settings. I think some parents are afraid to reach out because they think no one else has these concerns.
Mm.
And yet, every parent we talk to and every grandparent
Yeah.
pretty much has these concerns. So I think that not being afraid to reach out to others, not being afraid to talk at drop off or pickup time
Right.
or at PTA meetings, asking for a session on this, bringing some of the resources we share in the book to share with a child's teacher. And we present often to large groups of early childhood educators, and they have these concerns. They feel constrained by their school administration or whatever, but then they band together and work to change the minds of school administrators. So we do see that working together with others helps empower people, bolster their confidence, give them more resources to draw on. In our book, we present some screen aware protective factors that parents can work toward developing similar community ideas about. So, for example, a screen aware protective factor is having children spend more time outside. So,
Yes.
knowing that and knowing the research why that supports children can help you to make a case to the school board about why there needs to be more time for recess, that kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, I want to point out the phone-free schools, we have it here in New York. There was such concern, how will the children live? Actually coming from the parents more than the kids,
Yes.
um, the pushback, right? But pretty smooth. And to say that
Mm-hmm.
about New York City, that kind of thing, is really an amazing, and it's needed and wanted. So the proof is right there. I did see a beautiful thing I want to share with both of you. I live by a little grammar school, and I was passing by today in the chain link fence, and a little girl, they were out in the yard playing. She was just collecting leaves and
Mm-hmm.
staring at them, about 6 years old. And I'm like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Collecting, like just getting outside and collect. And there were other kids playing around her, but she was just fascinated by these leaves she was picking up.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's all kids need, not all these devices and fancy this and fancy that. Listen, if I had to do it all over as a mother, I'd give my kids each a box. No, kids like to play, I was buying so many
Mm-hmm.
toys and this. I'd see something at somebody's house and my daughter would want it. I'd go buy it. Kids don't need all that stuff. They need the love, the attention, the picking up of the leaves kind of thing, you know? Let's talk about, Jean, right now. How can we really look? We live in a digital age. The internet's not going away. Parents are going to buy devices. That's the reality. That's the truth about everything. How can we best support them? And let them know, other than talking to them, doing these videos, putting out, the action toolkit, the book about digital rights. Because I questioned a lot of people when they went back to school, because they all use Chromebooks in New York, and the parents would sign permission slips and check off like 30 check marks. I'm like, but did you read? Do you know what each check mark
Mm-hmm.
means? And then I saw that Gemini was on it. Not to pick on Gemini, but I will. And I'm like, do you know what that is? Because there are adults on that as well. They're like, I don't know what it is, but the
Mm-hmm.
school sent it home, so I think it's safe. I just checked it off. They all said this to me, different parents who don't know each other. So how do we support? I'll let you answer that. Do we have them go into their school and say, what is the curriculum? Explain it to me. How are we going to best get at all of this?
So a couple of things, Lynn. First, I think you were asking about children's rights in the digital age, and I think
Yes.
some of them, just for us to be able to understand what they are, the right to have their data protected, the right to have their image protected. You know, a lot of those AI toys we were just talking about, they have facial recognition, they have voice recognition in them. And the right to meaningful digital literacy education. You know, we work with some partners around media literacy, and I love to use this analogy when children learn how to read. If you think about it, they start by reading See Spot Run, then they might read Amelia Bedelia, then maybe Boxcar Children. Eventually they can read War and Peace. But if they go on the internet, it's War and Peace, like right away. In fact, it's mostly war. So what they're going to see is not age appropriate necessarily. And so media literacy is really critical for them to understand who created this. In our book, we talk about the questions to ask children, and they don't like being tricked. When they start realizing that they're being tricked by marketers, then they're really interested in learning all of this and learning the digital literacy. And then it's up to legislators. I mean, we had bipartisan, you've talked with my colleagues, I know about the Kids Online Safety Act, and passed the Senate 91-3. Nothing passes 91-3. But that was back in June, and we know that so much more work needs to be done to get that legislation signed. And I just read an article this morning about how in Australia, TikTok, Snapchat, Meta, and Instagram are preparing to deactivate social media accounts for children 16 and under, because that is being required of them. And so we, you know, it's very easy in a smaller country, but we need to be able to have those kinds of protections in place for our children as well. And in addition to COSA, Kids Online Safety Act, there's the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, COPPA 2.0, and the last time COPPA was updated was 1998.
Ridiculous.
So, you know, there was no internet.
1998. I mean, that was a good year, but seriously, it is so ridiculous, right? Like 1998 kind of thing.
Definitely.
You know, I mean, seriously, that's just not even worth the conversation because it's so ridiculous. People would not just believe that there's nothing been updated since. I mean, the Take It Down Act was, I think, the first piece of legislation like since then, when that was recently passed. Yes. So there's been nothing going on. This is unacceptable for everybody. I want to ask, let me ask you, Pat, are there any signs apparent? Again, parents are overwhelmed. They're busy. They're not understanding all of this, not their fault. Would there be signs of a child exhibiting certain behaviors or something if they saw? Does the book outline that, you know, a little bell would go off and be like, let me research further, or perhaps bring them to a doctor? Like, what should they be looking for?
I think if children start screaming when devices are taken away and keep screaming and don't know how to cope or how to be in the world without a device, that's a major cause of concern. I mentioned earlier when children's play simply imitates what they've seen on a screen. Often it's acting out a television show that they've seen without any of their own imagination or creativity. That's a cause for concern that they may have heavy exposure and too much media time. They're not having a chance to develop their own brains. If they don't know what to do with toys that don't entertain them, you know, one of the things we say in early childhood is the best kind of toy requires the most action from the child, not the toy doing everything for the child. So if they don't know what to do with a toy that isn't telling them something or entertaining them, that's an indicator that they've had too much exposure and they need to scale back.
Yeah,
those would be some examples.
Yeah, I think we need blocks, Lincoln Logs, Legos, where kids can just build and sit and use their imaginations. Well, let me ask you, Jean, what would you suggest right now if you could tell parents or grandparents, anybody listening, one thing, make one simple change? Because again, it is overwhelming. We've hit upon, promise me both of you will come back, because it requires more than one conversation. Things are changing so fast. The book has so much great information in it. It requires more. than just one quick hitting the public, with a lot of different things. But what is one thing, Jean, right now you would tell them, one simple change that they could make today they'll feel accomplished?
I think setting some limit is going to be really important because we know kids love limits. They thrive on it. And so even if it's a simple one like no devices at dinner or no devices in the bedroom, which is critical, picking what works best for your family. And then I think picking a screen-free time. I think Pat mentioned that earlier, whether that's dinner time or it's right after school, it's right in the morning. No screens in the morning is fantastic while kids are getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, likewise, pick a time when you do want to use it. Like maybe it's that bewitching hour between 5 and 6 when you're making dinner. So, be fair to yourself, but also set limits.
I like that. Setting limits.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, something we must get back to and start really encouraging. Pat, finish this up also. I want to go back. I want you to describe the no devices in the bedrooms. I talk about it nonstop. Tell us about the importance of that.
Well, one of the things that the American Academy of Pediatrics has found, and other researchers as well, is that screen time has a negative impact on children's sleep. Children of all ages, from newborns on up, are sleeping less than they were a decade, 2 decades ago, and our sleep time keeps diminishing. And screens have a major negative impact on sleep. Many parents think that screens soothe children before bed. So they'll say you can watch television to calm you down before bedtime, or you can watch television in your room, or you can look at something on your iPad. But it actually decreases melatonin and encourages children's brains to keep worrying so that they're not calming down and getting to sleep. It's far more effective to keep screens away for an hour or even 2 hours before bedtime and read to children, play quiet activities, sing, whatever you want to work into your bedtime routine. But those screens really have a negative impact on sleep, and there's a big body of research that supports that. It's also true for adults.
We'll talk about them in another program because they're suffering as well. But and I'll just say we lead by example. I'll just leave it at that. We have to lead by example with all of our kids. And it's truly addictive. We work with a lot of parents, true addictions to screens, and kids who have really harmed themselves when the devices were taken away from them. They can't live. They have camps kids can go to now to get over their screens. So this is a very urgent, important topic that we have to keep talking about every single day. I want to finish up with you, Jean. Give us a final thought.
I just want to mention that we started the Screen Time Action Network in 2017 because we knew that people were feeling isolated with this issue. They were feeling like it's an uphill battle, and I'm the only one in my school saying something, or I'm the only one in my community who thinks this is a problem. Well, there are so many people, and we come together as like-minded people at the Screen Time Action Network. Membership is free, and we have 4 work groups right now on topics like mental health, early childhood, screens in schools, and early childhood. And those work groups come together to create smaller communities within our large global network to amplify each other's work, because we're all doing something and we need to be able to share that somewhere, and to work together to create these fantastic resources or to do advocacy projects. And they really find that they're not discouraged when they come here. So if you're feeling discouraged or like this issue is too big for you to handle alone, please join us at the Screen Time Action Network.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. We always end up actually with resources. We like takeaways, take actions, and I'll have links to everything in the body of this video so everybody can sign on. And again, it's so much good free information, and that old saying, there's power in numbers. When you're with like-minded people and all sharing something, that's where you create change and affect change, and there's success. Okay, Pat, give us a final thought. Anything.
I wanted to say something about video chat and grandparents.
Okay.
This is kind of the approach we've taken in the book is we recognize that screens can still play a role to support family relationships. And I know that especially during the pandemic, video
Yes.
chats were a way for families to stay connected, a very important way. Many grandparents don't see their children on a day-to-day basis, but they can have opportunities to read to their grandchildren, to talk to their grandchildren. Parents who are deployed can use that as a way of keeping in touch with children. And the reason that, say, the American Academy of Pediatrics supports video chat is it's a way to maintain relationships, which is really
Yes.
important for children's development. And it's back and forth, it's responsive. It's that serve and return interaction. It's not just the same television program saying the same things all the time, regardless of circumstances, but it's a unique exchange between an adult and a child. So I wanted to put in a good word for that.
So I should do my video chatting with the baby.
Well,
Play music. Yeah.
read to the baby.
I mean, they live
Absolutely.
very
Sing to
far.
the
They live
baby.
far away from me because
Oh,
this has
yeah.
been in my mind lately. Like
Yeah.
I have to maintain bond contact. And I was actually going to ask both of you this. Like, do I do it? Do I don't do it? Like, how do I wait till the baby's older? Like, can I do it right away? Play music?
Sure. I have a
Okay, good.
10-month-old
I like this.
grandchild who lives in
Oh,
Brooklyn. And
oh, my neighbor. Yeah.
Probably. I just had some video chat with him yesterday. I don't know what he makes of it, but he sees my face, he hears
Yeah.
my voice, he hears my interaction with his parents, and that's one of the ways we maintain our relationship.
I feel so much better because I was like, do I do this? Do I not do this? I have to ask both of you. Well, listen, the book is Screen Aware Early Childhood. We'll link everything, as I mentioned, in the body of the video. All of the Action Network, all of the toolkits, everything will be there. I want to thank both of you for being true warriors in every sense of the word. I really mean this as well. Your dedication, your commitment, your courage. I think it's very courageous. You do this work. It's not easy. We should acknowledge that it is excellent and you're helping so many people. But protecting children online is really what it's all about today. So I feel like this is just not a resource, your book. Yes, it is a resource, but it's a kind of a movement that we all can join. Again, there's power in numbers. We can all get on board and help each other, educate each other. And it's really a call to action for every parent to join and do something. And I'll leave out the policymakers for now. They're working. We're working on everything. They got to get back on all of this and protect our kids. But in the meantime, we stand at the Warriors shoulder to shoulder with you, and we'll promote and help you in any way possible. And I thank you for building a world, a screen-free world, and helping with all of this, because this is exactly what is needed for our kids to be successful and for families and caretakers also to be successful. So I can't thank both of you enough for joining me today on the Warriors. We must do it again.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Lynn.
And
Thanks,
for the
Pat.
work
Thanks,
you're
Jean.
doing.
Oh, of course. My work, let me point something out. I can't do what I do unless I have the resources of FairPlay, because I don't do what you do. So I think, Jean, you said before, like, we all do something different. So if we truly can collaborate and come together, that's powerful. And that will make all the difference. So thank you for acknowledging that. But I'm overwhelmed because I use everything of FairPlays. And I love the work. And it's just exactly about the screens. And it's easy. So thank you, both of you, for doing this. You've been both doing it for years now and dealing with all of this. And next time we'll talk more about AI. We'll have a lot to talk about.
We will.
Probably by tomorrow with AI. It's just rolling out all over. But on a serious note, thank you very much. You promise me you'll come back and we'll do it again soon.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.